Okay, it doesn't sound like any particular announcements. We have the July meeting notes posted, as well as the recording from the July meeting. I put the YouTube link in the chat, so if anyone missed that meeting, again, they're welcome to see the recording for that. Partly due to web accessibility requirements, it's a little bit harder to get the presentations sufficiently accessible. So please use the recording if you're interested in getting information from a past meeting. Dave or Sarah, any other announcements you'd like to make at the start?
No, I'm good, actually.
Me too.
Okay, great. Sarah, I'll stop sharing if you're good to go.
Good morning, Sarah Ryan with the Big Valley Band of Poma Indians. I'm going to pull my presentation up for CalWatch tap water program, and particularly the cyanotoxin results that we had this summer. We are going to do a larger presentation on that at the January meeting, but I will go ahead and pull my presentation up. Just hold on just for a moment.
And I'll just say, if while she's getting that ready, if you do have ideas, we've got that later on the agenda, but be thinking about if you have ideas for or interest in presenting at that January meeting. I know we have a couple presenters lined up already, but there's still room. So definitely let us know either in that agenda item or by email later if you have ideas for, again, that meeting. And it is on our CCHAB network website as well.
All right. So can you see my screen, Becky?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, perfect. So as I mentioned, I'm going to be talking about the CalWatch program on Clear Lake, particularly the cyanotoxin issues that we had this summer. And I will be just giving a brief overview of what's happened or what happened this summer. We'll go into this in the January meeting a little bit later. But the CalWatch program, CalWatch stands for California Water Assessment of Toxins for Community Health. And it is a CDC grant that was received by Tracking California, working in conjunction with the Public Health Institute. And Big Valley Band of Poma Indians is the boots on the ground for a few components of the project, in particular sampling tap water and tap water from intakes on Clear Lake and nearshore wells on Clear Lake for various contaminants. The PI is Gina Solomon, and we also have Susan Polyukonis from Tracking California on the call today, and she is the project manager. So we have a great team of people who've been working on this program for this year, including people from State Water Resources Control Board, OEHA, Tracking California, and Big Valley. It is a 5-year grant. So every year we're Tracking California is submitting a new work plan, but we just finished year 1 and are just starting year 2. Year 1, so year 1 had 4 components. I'm really just going to go into the B3 and B4 components. I'm sorry, B1 and B4 components, which are the drinking water hazards at Clear Lake. So we, in this project, we identified the homes that were not hooked to public water systems, but were getting their drinking water specifically from Clear Lake. Whether they were from near shore or intake, it didn't matter. We, wanted to test their water. and for a few different components or contaminants, nitrates, E. coli, total coliform, herbicides, if there were herbicide applications in the lake near them, and then also cyanotoxins. So I'll be talking particularly about the cyanotoxins today. In the project itself, we had to, there was not a list of which homes were hooked to, had their own drinking water from Clear Lake. We knew that through the water boundary tool that the majority of the homes were hooked to public water systems. There are 18 public water systems on the lake. But we knew that we had to identify which homes were going to be eligible for this testing. So there was the process of doing that, as well as developing the forms and the outreach and everything to do the actual tap water sampling, and to not only document the information, but also to provide the messaging of the results to the participants. The nearshore wells aspect, we just gave it a kind of a cutoff of 50 feet from the shoreline, thinking that, just estimating that those would be ones that were getting, the water, their tap water was actually going to be influenced by lake water. And then obviously intakes themselves, were directly from the lake. And just a little background that private systems, private wells or private intakes aren't regulated or monitored. Public water systems are drinking water systems that are hooked to 15 or more service connections, and they have to meet the Safe Drinking Water Act and are basically regulated by the State Water Resources Control Board. Formerly, it was California Department of Public Health. State small systems are those drinking water systems that are hooked to 5 to 14 service connections, and they have to meet some components of the Safe Drinking Water Act, but it's usually kind of like some annual, I think maybe annual nitrates and bacteria, but not much else. And County Environmental Health, as I mentioned, is overseeing what they're doing and kind of keeping up with documentation. And then these private systems are drinking water systems that are hooked to 4 or fewer homes or businesses. And for this presentation, we were particularly interested in homes that either had private wells or their private systems of 4 to fewer service connections, what their drinking water quality was like coming out of their tap, especially during cyanotoxin bloom or cyanobacteria bloom with cyanotoxins. So as I mentioned, we did have to identify which parts of the lake and which properties on the lake shoreline were not served by public water system drinking water or state small drinking water. And we found that there were approximately a little under 500 home or properties that had that were not hooked to public water systems according to the water boundary tool, and that also had structures on the shoreline where they had a tax value of $10,000 or more. So we figured those were homes that were had their own intakes or wells. We also did a well review with DWR well completion reports, and found that according to well completion reports, there was only one well on the within the whole area of Clear Lake that had a well completion report that was near, in the near shore area of the shoreline. We have since understood that, the DWR reports are not complete. So we did do outreach to the homes after we were able to determine which homes were eligible, what we consider were eligible because they weren't hooked to public water systems. So we developed the messaging for that and to let them know that they could participate. And as I have here on the slide, basically once we got that information to them, we started doing tap water sampling. And we did several contaminants, earlier in the season. So it was really the summer that we got to cyanotoxins. So we'll get into more detail with this with the other, presentation this January. This is the, we had a social media presence, but also, of course, a website presence where people could get resources. Here's the website, www.cal-watch.org. So there was a lot of good information online, and we also put it on Facebook and a few places. Did a survey with folks about their use of the lake and how cyanotoxins were impacting them. We'll go into that in the January meeting, the results. And this is just the information of how much outreach we did to try to get people signed up. And we reached out to people at both their mailing addresses as well as their physical addresses, because many of those homes were not, were vacation homes or like Airbnb, VRBO, you know, just that type of vacationing type of homes that people were renting out for vacations. So we had to reach out to the mailing addresses of folks. And we did ask about their treatment. Once people responded, and we asked about their level of treatment at their homes, if they were on a well or an intake, full-time versus part-time residents, owner versus renter, and you know, just got the information to get scheduled to do tap water analysis. And we did conduct send off for total coliform, E. coli, nitrates, herbicides if warranted, as I mentioned, which ended up being about 12 or 13 participants, and also cyanotoxins, which we did in, and we are still actually still have some additional cyanotoxin analysis scheduled, but we started earlier this summer because the blooms at Lake County or on Clear Lake were getting very extensive, and the toxin levels started to they were in the danger level for multiple areas starting in July. So we did some surveillance cyanotoxin analysis just to see where folks were at, and that's what the rest of my presentation is about. So by July and certainly into August, in the Oaks and lower arms of Clear Lake, we had danger levels in multiple locations. This is the map of our recreational cyanotoxin testing. So this is not the tap water map. This is our recreational sites that we have on Clear Lake, that Big Valley and Elam Indian Colony, our monitoring program that we started in 2014 that I report on during the Central Valley reporting for CCHAB. And the markers here are the locations where we sample. This is 100 miles of shoreline of lake. We do have interior sites as well when we partner with the county or UC Davis, who are on the lake doing research and collecting water samples. So we ask them to take water samples for us that we send off for analysis and do microscopy on and things like that. So this outreach is from an August sampling event where we, at our different locations, the red, orange, and yellow colors are based on the caution warning danger CCHAB levels that we all know about. So this is a quick and easy way for the public to see how the what the toxin levels are like in different parts of the lake, so we can encourage them to go to other locations for their recreation. So what we were finding in our nitrates and coliform testing was that, well, first of all, we in our tracking, we would identify and document what their treatment was. And we were also doing chlorine residual at the tap water and noting that many people had levels that were below what is really needed to take care of bacteria. So we did provide that information to them. And what we found were there were a lot of people that had various types of treatment and they just really weren't on top of it. They were either going with a company to come and service, and or they were doing it themselves and not really knowing how to handle it. I had treatment companies call me saying, what micron filter do we need to get cyanotoxins out? It just, these maintenance systems, the companies that would service these folks just didn't have a sense of how to deal with cyanotoxins. And what we found, and what we started to pull together was, and this is still in process, was that when we categorized the type of treatment that people had, and there were some people who had no treatment at all with their intakes or wells, that there was a growing, a concerning percentage of coliform and E. coli detects in their tap water. So when it came, and once we started to do cyanotoxin analysis, and we saw these incredibly high numbers, basically about 90% of the people who we tested, and these were all for intakes, not for the wells, but about 90% had cyanotoxin detects in their tap water. And as we were just going through and kind of logging that information, it was very concerning, and it was with toxin levels that were still, in the hundreds, not anything higher than that, but it was in the hundreds, and that was enough to be concerned. And of course, we were giving the results out to people and saying, you're not going to want to drink the water with when we saw their cyanotoxin detects in their tap water. There were some people that we had to say, you shouldn't be drinking this water until you have it serviced. And that was because we had people who had detects well over the 0.3 micrograms per liter that US EPA has set as a health advisory for microcystin in tap water. We were also finding intact cyanobacteria in their tap water. So this means it went through their holding tank, the pump, chlorine injector, various levels of filtration. And this is what was coming out of their tap water. This is one of our microscopy photos. And we had multiple, a good many of the people who we sampled were above that 0.3 micrograms per liter, with the highest tap microsystem result of 3.85 micrograms per liter. And anybody who was above that 0.3, our team determined that that the messaging would be that they should not be drinking that water until they have it serviced. Well, a little later in the year, and I don't have many slides on this, but a little later in the year, we were seeing even higher cyanotoxins, and we actually had cyanotoxin detects of over 160,000 micrograms per liter for microcystin, which is, of course, almost is 200,000 times higher than the 0.8 micrograms per liter that we've set. We recommend is for recreation, and certainly much higher for drinking, if you're looking at it from a drinking water perspective. So I know I'm running out of time. I will just wrap it up that what we did was we reached out to our public health officer and also Lake County OES and said, because of these high cyanotoxin levels in the lake, and also because we're seeing them cyanotoxin levels that are one order of magnitude above what EPA is recommending for drinking, that we need to recommend that people should not be drinking this water as a whole, in terms of not just our participants, but all of the homes that are in the two arms of the lake where the toxin levels are the highest. And so after these discussions with the public health officer, they did agree to not only send out a nixle, but to put out several health advisories and basically press releases to state, do not drink the water if you have private intakes on the Oaks and lower arms of Clear Lake. We were able to get alternate water stations established for people to get their drinking water from. This health advisory is actually still in effect because the public health officer has asked for a couple of sampling events beyond the highest levels that we were getting. Happy to say that we're now down to a couple of sites with a 500 micrograms per liter for microcystin. And I'm assuming that the health advisory will be lifted at some point soon regarding these private intakes and wells. Actually, it's just for the private intakes on the Oaks and lower arms. We did estimate that it was approximately 300 homes that were affected on those parts of Clear Lake. And we have done a couple newspaper articles. There was actually got picked up by some press, a couple of radio shows, and the public or social media outreach about the health advisory and the places to get the alternate fill stations. So we're still in the midst of this thing. It's pretty much over in terms of the highest toxin levels on the lake. And we'll have more to talk about in the January meeting. And that is it. If anyone has any questions.
Great, thanks, Sarah. I think we had the next agenda item was for 9:30, so we have time for questions. And I think we had a couple of people in the waiting room. If we can get
I
those.
moved the hosting over to Dave.
Okay.
So if he
Okay,
could-
great. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to unmute yourself and ask or raise a hand.
You know, Becky, I just wanted to mention that I've heard that there are very few drinking water bodies or water bodies in California that are used for drinking water that also have cyanobacteria blooms. Now, I don't know if anybody has done a study on that, but it was, as far as I know, this is, at least in California, this is the first one of these that have had to happen, where the toxin levels were so high that that the drinking water, the private water systems had to, be curtailed, or, at least a health advisory went out. So I would love to get some feedback from people on that. The other thing is that the public water systems were under a drinking water order this summer to be testing weekly or biweekly for microcystin, depending on the toxin levels from the week before at their intakes. And they also had to test at their treated water and report the information to the State Water Resources Control Board. So that went on all summer. I think the highest at public water systems intake was, I don't think it was, it might've been 130, but all of the finished water for the public water systems was below that 0.3 micrograms per liter. So that's really good to hear. But if you can imagine, the private water systems don't have that level of treatment that a public water system does. And they also don't have that level of expertise of their workers, to be able to stay on top of chlorine residuals and backwashing and, filter changing and all the different things that you need to do to make sure that water is safe. So it was really good to be able to have some data on these private drinking water systems, and especially in a year where we had such high cyanotoxin levels. We are going to be doing a series of, or some additional cyanotoxin monitoring at these these private taps within the next month, and that those samples are going to be also analyzed for anatoxin. We did have multiple anatoxin hits detects on Clear Lake, and actually we have one site where it's in the 30s, I think 35 micrograms per liter for anatoxin, which is at the warning level for anatoxins. So with drinking water systems near that, it's also a great concern, but our understanding is that people are not actually drinking that water, or even the water level is so low that their intakes don't even reach. So the drought kind of helped in terms of kind of stopping that as a water supply for a couple of these locations. So if there's no other questions, I'm going to stop share.
Yeah, thanks so much, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you. And we'll do a larger presentation in January.
Yeah, I don't see any additional questions in the chat. Sorry, I'm in the field and I'm having some connectivity issues. So I apologize to those of you who were admitted a little late. My bad.
Oh, thanks, Dave, for helping. Okay, well, I will go ahead and I was going to give a brief overview on our the Interstate Technology and Regulatory Council, ITRC. We had an original harmful cyanobacteria team meet that was going on. That's into training now, and has our web-based document live now. And then we started up focused on Benthic cyanobacteria team beginning in January. And I just want to make sure, can everyone see the screen okay with the slide? Great,
Yes,
thanks.
it's showing.
And so for anyone who's worked on an ITRC team, usually they're a tier team, and we were ambitious because we were building off our first team, but it's been quite compressed. And so we're actually already into our final version of our document by the end of this week, and it'll go through all the review and processing and web development, and will be up next spring. So this is a project that I'm working on with Ben Holcomb of Utah. Our program advisor is Sherry Basinger, and both of those were involved in the original team as program advisor and leader, and Angela Chambeau retired from Vermont was a team leader for the original team. So the link is for our current team page, and we have a fact sheet. And so one of the reasons why we really wanted to focus more extensively on benthic cyanobacteria beyond what we did in the original document was it's, pretty unique. And I certainly know California has more experience than a lot of other states in that, but the benthic form can grow as mats along the bottom of different surfaces and different water body types, including lakes, rivers, and estuaries. As it grows, and with changes in flow or just the extent of growth, the pieces can detach, float to the surface, and then strand along shorelines. It complicates our communication messaging because it can go in clear water and relatively higher flows. So it's not always discolored water or green globs or something that looks a little less attractive. It can be less visible along the bottom, can be intermixed with filamentous green algae or aquatic plants. And the environmental conditions in which it can grow, again, differs from planktonic. Certainly for California and with other states, there's been human and animal impacts, particularly, unfortunately, with dog deaths, and that is most commonly with actual ingestion of mat material or direct contact. And these benthic forms, more commonly, we're seeing the neurotoxins, the anatoxins A, the saxitoxins with these forms. So for this specific benthic HCB team, we wanted to again focus on this and acknowledge that there are limited resources available that are specific for benthic bacteria, but we wanted to summarize what is available and what recommendations we have for moving forward in terms of field screening, the sampling and analytical methods, what thresholds are available for those, how to think about advisories, prevention and management and control. And so again, we wanted to build on what was available from the March 2020 original HCB, or I'll use HCB1 regulatory guidance, again, to focus more specifically on benthic. And then, so as far as our team schedule, we just completed the external review. I did send that around, so hopefully people, if they had a chance to comment, we received quite a few comments, and then we're actively addressing those. Again, our text is going to be finalized by the end of this week. So we're not really accepting comments at this point, but again, we're certainly happy to have received all the ones we did and to incorporate that feedback. They'll be compiled and developed into a web-based document over the next 2 months. And then the final web document will be available in next spring. And then we're actively recruiting for our training subgroup. And again, that'll be co-occurring with the release of the document and then multiple rounds through there. And we expect that that'll also be available as a recorded event. And so if you do happen to miss that, I think it'll be generally for April, but we'll make that available once we get a final date. And so one of the things that we've been trying to build off of is, so HCB1 was our original document. It was primarily focused on planktonic, but we did address some unique aspects of benthic HCBs. And so that was structured with an introduction, focus on monitoring, communication response plan, nutrient management, and recommendations. And again, it's available now, and that's the link. And then we are actively working, as I mentioned, on the Benthic HCB or HCB2. And that has a specific introduction, recommendations for monitoring, communication response planning, recommendation, and some specific case studies, and that'll be available in the spring. And then as part of this, we're updating and sharing the resources across both documents with a specific focus on cyanotoxins, because generally that's going to be regardless of your original type of source, once it's available, they act similarly. Management strategies will combine across both, and that'll be incorporated into the tool. And then the visual guide, again, will have all types of cyanobacteria. And those consolidated updates will be available in spring as well. But the management strategies that are available and the visual guide as part of HCB1 are available now, and then those updates will replace those again next spring. So as I mentioned, the team is mostly through with this version of the final draft of the document, but we are actively recruiting for training. So if you are still interested and want to join the team, we'll start doing meetings on that in November. So very soon, but that opportunity still exists even if you weren't on the team before. So just want to offer that, and then certainly ask that anyone's interested, keep an eye out. I'll make sure to send a message out when we do have the document and the training going live, and that'll be next spring. So that's what I had for that. We've got plenty of time for questions, or if there's anything else that came up as folks are ready to go. I'll put the agenda back up. Okay, I'm not seeing any comments. So I would suggest we go ahead and take go into the break, and let's go ahead and keep that. I know meetings often run back to back, so I'm going to suggest we go ahead and still leave that till 10, give you a little bit more of a break, and reconvene at 10. And then again, if any of the regional coordinators have slides, or if Marissa, if you want to check out screen sharing while we're on this break, and then we'll move into the regional coordinator updates, kind of the statewide, the mitigation subcommittee, the illness work group update. Then we'll discuss for 2022 our schedule and some topics, and then we'll do wrap up. And see you at 10.
Hey, Becky. I can just practice sharing screens since you're using a different Zoom account than normal. If you're still here.
Sorry, Missa, I just put it in the chat for the Benthic HCB team. The only part that's going to be active for this phase is the training, and that'll run through starting with meetings in November, and at least running through the spring training, but it sounds like there is interest in doing multiple rounds of the training once we develop that material.
Mm-hmm.
So I know for the original team, they did last spring. They're going to do a December 2nd, another live version of that. And then I think they may also do one next spring and next fall as well. So for those who become official trainers. It may continue just doing the training events into the future, but I would expect the main commitment to be between November of next month into probably April of next year. For that
Thanks,
piece.
Beckye. Yeah, just to
Yeah.
clarify what all the opportunities are. So just one training team.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, and each team has its own schedule,
Mhm.
although most of them are on a 2-year schedule, and they generally start with I think generally the calendar year.
Mhm.
And so I know they already put out they'll do proposals for upcoming year teams, and then they select the teams that are going to move forward, and then there's a few months for recruiting, and then I think they generally start in January, and then they're doing a full meeting next spring.
Okay. We'll look into that. Maybe some other folks will be interested too. Thanks.
And it looks like your slides were showing up fine, Marissa.
Oh, yeah, thanks. Yeah, I checked the thing just to make sure the interface that it showed up.
Yeah.
So all is well. All right, I'll see you back at 10.
For the regional hub coordinators that are on, we'll just go through by region number. I can show the map, but if you have anything you want to present, we can facilitate that as well. We'll just get started again at 10. Okay, everybody, we'll start getting people back from the break. Hopefully appreciate it a little bit longer than we had scheduled, but we'll move on to the regional coordinators updates. Again, this can include not just the Water Board FHAB regional coordinators, but other folks who have monitoring programs or projects. Feel free to chime in at this point. We'll go north to south. And then for the other groups, we will bring those in at the next agenda item. So we will, and I will switch to showing the incident map here shortly, and we can go from there. Or if anyone, again, wants to share a screen, feel free to let us know when we can facilitate that. And for folks that haven't noticed, I know the FHAB program has been sending out the weekly updates, and they now have a link just above the map if you aren't on a listserv or want to get a current version of that. So that's a great new feature. I know that's been useful for me if you haven't noticed that yet. So if we want to go ahead, if people are back from break, Mike and Rich from Regional Board, North Coast Region 1.
Hey, good morning, Becky and everybody. My name is Mike Thomas. I'm the CyanoHAB program lead for Region 1 in Santa Rosa. Just to give you all a brief update of what happened in 2021, the region provided monitoring support and monitoring or recreational posting recommendations with the help of 20+ partner agencies in our region. These partners include people at the tribal, county, state, and federal level, as well as other organizations. Some highlights, the Russian River was posted at a caution during the 2021 season with the help of Sonoma Water and Sonoma County Environmental Health. The reasons for these postings were largely based on visual evidence of benthic cyanobacteria mats, as well as elevated toxin concentrations and spat concentrations. This caution has since been removed as of last week at the 10 recreational beaches, largely due to decreasing cyanotoxins as well as the recent rains that we had. In the Klamath Basin, we had a danger at Copco Reservoir, warning at Iron Gate Reservoir, and then a caution on the Klamath River downstream. These concentrations appear to be decreasing, so hopefully those postings will be removed soon as well. In regards to the pre-holiday assessments, we had 9 water bodies participate in the Memorial, 4th of July, and Labor Day assessments, and that resulted in 4 cautions or postings being issued for 4 water bodies. We had various other cautions issued for Salmon Creek, Ewing Reservoir. There was routine monitoring at Big Lagoon that resulted in a warning. Tule Lake National Wildlife Refuge is also doing routine monitoring, and they had cautions issued at their sumps throughout the season. And then there's also some PhD research being conducted in the Klamath Basin that was looking at anatoxins, and that resulted in cautions on the Klamath, Scott, Salmon, and Trinity rivers, as well as Dillon Creek. In regards to illnesses, we did have 2 confirmed dog deaths in Region 1. Both occurred in the Trinity River and may have involved Trinity Lake for at least one of the cases. And then for human illnesses, we did have 3 confirmed illnesses in the South Fork Eel River, the Trinity River, and Lewiston Lake. And finally, I just wanted to let everybody know that we are wrapping up our benthic cyanobacteria monitoring report. And this compiles information from the Eel, South Fork Eel, and Russian rivers from 2016 to 19. Where we have identified benthic cyanobacteria and cyanotoxins of concern, comparing various analytical and sampling techniques, and then ultimately providing monitoring recommendations that other regions or entities may find useful. So that has been sent up to upper management, and hopefully the report will be out within the next month or so.
That's great. Thank you, Mike. I know one of the things that was certainly prevalent for your region as well was the extensive wildfires. Was there any monitoring that as far as nutrients into the flow, maybe this with the rainstorms or anything? I know wildflower and potential for HABs has been a topic of interest for this group before. So just didn't know if there's any data that might be coming out with that type of study.
Not that I'm aware, no.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, thank you.
And look forward to the forthcoming report. Definitely will be interested in sending that out once it's available.
Yep. Thanks, Becky.
Thanks. Region 2, either FHAB coordinators or East Bay Parks.
Hey, I'll go first. Well, I think this is one of
Great,
the
thanks.
SWAMP coordinators at, you guys hear me? I'm one of the SWAMP coordinators at Region 2, along with Christina. She wasn't able to. But we recently took over from Gary Austin for the FHAB coordinator role. So I don't have much in the way of updates on this, but just wanted to thanks to everyone at Statewide. Be patient with us as we learn this. Good to be here and get more.
You're cutting out a little bit. I think we got most of that. Welcome, and thanks for the update. Appreciate that. Hal,
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, we met Rebecca a few weeks ago, and it was really a good introduction to tell her what our programs were and everything. And we do participate in this and get our info updated all the time. There was a dog illness that I think, did you report that to us, Becky? At Quarry Lakes, and we did go out and try to find more cyanos around there, and we did end up at one of the Quarry Lakes. Lago Las Osos did have danger levels, and it was posted, and then Shin Pond was posted as a caution after that dog illness report. We haven't heard anything else from that dog illness report. We did have an incident that was reported, that we reported at Lake Chabot. There's, at the end of September, there was a bunch of adult carp that were found around the lake. And we went out, and we were having a bloom, and we do have like elevated toxins there, but the only fish we found were adult carp, and we don't know if that's really associated. And then we also reported on an incident at Welch Creek, which is up in the Sonol Ohlone Wilderness. And we are planning on doing another report, High Valley Pond. I think I said Welch Creek. It's Welch Pond. We have some cattle ponds up in it's open space, and there was 60 turtles that died in this one pond. We don't know if it's associated with cyanobacteria. It sure looked like cyanobacteria to us in the pond, and we did have toxins. There were 17 turtles that survived and are at the San Francisco Zoo recovering. But we just haven't done an incident report on that one yet. The recent storm really obscured cyanobacteria at Lake Anza and Lake Temescal, and Anza is on the verge of being downgraded from a danger to a caution. We'll see if that happens. We're running tests today. Del Val has been green since August 5th. Contra Loma has been at a caution since October 13th. Big Break has been at a caution since August 18th. Lake Anza has been at a danger since October 7th. Shadow Cliffs has been at a green light since August 5th. And Temescal has been at a green light since July 15th. And Lake Chabot's been at a caution. We are having discussions about potentially moving that to a danger, but we have to coordinate with a bunch of turtle staff before we can do something like that.
great. Thanks, Hal. I did get an update from Jenna Reinder. She's the HAB coordinator for CDFW for the Delta, which I know spans 2 and 3 as far as water board regions. Hopefully you guys have heard there's an epiphytic cyanobacteria that's been documented in the southeast region in particular, that as growing on hydrilla, and it's in a presence of bromide. They get I'm gonna mangle the pronunciation, it's Cyanotoxin is the toxin, and the cyanobacteria is Ecthonos hydrilica or hydrilicola. And so that's been associated with avian myopathy or myelopathy. It's a neurotoxin. And so that's been published recently and more information is available. And so Jenna facilitated getting some vegetation samples brought in from the Delta and sent to Susan Wild's lab. She's been actively involved with that. So they didn't identify that particular cyanobacteria, but they did find some other cyanobacteria that were growing on the aquatic vegetation samples that were sent in on and rotified. Also updated is the emergency drought barrier is for salinity is staying in place this winter. So CDFW and US EPA are recommending some additional cyanotoxin monitoring through to DWR and US Bureau of Reclamation. There's also a HAB session at the IEP or Interagency Ecological Program Workshop that's going to be next March. And the HAB session will be on March 24th, so keep an eye out for that. And that Interagency Ecological Program team now has a phytoplankton and water quality project work team. Jenna, Keith, and Janice are co-chairs, and then HABs will be a subcomponent of that. So if you have any questions on any of that, feel free to follow up with Jenna Rind, the CFW HAB coordinator. So with that, anything else for the Delta or Region 2? Great, thanks. I know it's not in number, but I always think of it this way. So I'm going to go ahead and switch to Region 5, and which I know is a very broad region. And that'll include Water Board Region 5, as well as any further update from Clear Lake that Sarah wants to give.
Hi, I am Karen Atkins. I'm the CyanoHAB lead at Region 5. Yeah, you guys just heard a lot about Clear Lake, so I won't go into too much depth about that. But yes, it's still listed as a danger, as well as Lake Hensley in our region. In terms of caution, we have San Luis Reservoir, and also there's a couple in the Stockton area still. We had a bunch on the American River this year, Benthic HABs, and we also had a dog death. We're hoping to work with state parks in that area for next year to start a normal monitoring program, which is very exciting. In addition to that, one of the big things going on is that we are presenting at our board meeting, either in December or February. We're still kind of trying to figure that out, but we'll be presenting in coordination with some Stockton area partners. And so that's one big thing that we're working on, and y'all can stay tuned to. That's all for me.
Thank you. Sarah, did you want to add anything for Clear Lakes or other lakes that you do monitoring at?
Yeah, let's see, I'm gonna share my screen. Just like to show some information about our cyanotoxin monitoring on Clear Lake this summer. What you see here are the sites where we did some monitoring either every other week or periodically. Some of these are interior of the lake sites. And we got samples periodically from the county or UC Davis, depending on when they were out there. But you can see, we actually have a sampling event on October 13th, I believe, that we just got the data from that is not on here. But we try to track it like this in terms of the signage, and we also go into, I'll show it from here. We track the microscopy, the dominant and secondary, and put the toxins. We share this information with the county and other people who are on our contact list. We did a lot of antitoxin monitoring this summer. So as I mentioned, this is actually, these are the results from October 12th, the sampling event. We do have a couple of danger. Actually, let me see how many danger we have. I haven't done the map for it yet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we still have 5 sites with danger, 4, 5 sites with warning. This is October 12th. And you can see we have an antitoxin toxin level of 35.42. We do analyze for antitoxin when the dominant microscopy shows an antitoxin producer. So we went from a season where we saw a lot of microcystis. We're now kind of moving to planktothrix and efamizamenon in some of our sites and a lot of our sites. So we are just kind of waiting to see, now that we've got some extra water, just waiting to see whether we have a big change and a drop in cyanotoxin levels. I'm thinking we will, but last year we had danger levels in through November. So my understanding was that a lot of the illnesses, well, maybe this will be reported on, but a lot of the illnesses that came in early on in the season were reported from Clear Lake. We had a Lingbia bloom for part of the summer, and that really looks and smells terrible. So I think maybe that had something to do with it. We are seeing, so we're kind of tracking, how many times throughout the summer, there was either caution warning or danger at these sites. And a lot of the sites had, 50 to 100% of the time, over 50% of the time had caution warning or danger at the in terms of our sampling events. So this is just information we're tracking both for beneficial use impairment as well as just communication and sharing it. So that's, I think we also did we were responding because of the CalWatch program. We did respond, do some sampling after illness reporting, and there was I believe antitoxin and microcystin at one of the creeks. There was a dog illness there. We did sampling afterwards, and there were detects of antitoxin and microcystin, I believe, at this creek site. We don't do a lot of creek monitoring, but we will if need be, and certainly after illness reports. I don't think it was conclusive though for that dog, but we did find presence in the creek. So we also have a couple programs starting this next year where we're going to be looking at cyanotoxins in tissue again, some of the food sources of the tribe, including American coot on the lake. So they call them mud hen. So we'll be looking for cyanotoxins in their tissue this coming year, as well as some more fish tissue cyanotoxin monitoring. And I think that's it for our report.
Great. Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks.
Moving to Central Coast region.
This is Marissa Van of the FAB program. I got a message from Melissa Daughtry, the coordinator for the Central Coast, and she needed to hop on to a bioaccumulation workgroup meeting and wanted me just to provide a little update that they expanded their regular monitoring at their routine swamp monitoring sites. So their surface water monitoring sites that they have at recreation sites at about 5 or 6 different lakes. Particularly for fecal bacteria monitoring. They added a cyanotoxin monitoring for each of the holiday assessments, Memorial Day, Independence Day, and Labor Day. And their results and any resulting advisories are posted on the instant map. I don't know, Beckye, if you want to share that again. It's helpful to see that. Interestingly, there was quite an extensive also like monitoring for the holiday assessments done by a community group in the Monterey County area of 6 different regional and city managed park parks that have ponds, and also some of the popular docks on the bay itself, on Monterey Bay, and those were monitored as well, and surprisingly found very different kinds of cyanobacteria genera in each of those ponds. And then in the bay proper, there's 2 monitoring sites in the wharf, popular areas for kayaking and so forth, and paddle boarding. And there were toxins detected at above the caution advisory level, so that was of concern. Particularly, more monitoring would have to be done to learn a little bit more about where those cyanobacteria toxins were coming from. Perhaps there's cells being discharged from some of the near shore ponds and lakes, and those cells were lysing in the salt water. But yeah, that was some interesting data that highlights perhaps a future monitoring project. Thanks for zooming in there. There's another dot there in the area of the Central Coast for Watsonville. Quite popular Pinto Lake continues to be monitored by the city for microcystins. And positive thing to say is that the microcystin levels have decreased substantially, and I believe they're at non-detect right now, though there's still a warning advisory posted for no swimming until further notice. And yeah, this is often a lake that's presented on because there's a case study of post mitigation case study going on there. And I think that's
Great.
it for Central Coast from the water boards, but open up to any other groups in the Central Coast.
Sarah, go ahead.
Actually, I had a question for Marissa. So were you saying that, so it was Pinto Lake that is that had some advisories this summer? Was it Pinto Lake you mentioned?
That was one of them. The most recent one was Pinto Lake. It has a permanent no swimming advisory posted because of the historic blooms, and there's ongoing monitoring for their extensive mitigation project that they did about 2 years ago of applying alum in the lake, and they're also doing quite a bit of watershed kind of sediment control implementation across quite a large area to prevent more sediment and nutrients from coming into that lake.
But they are still getting cyanotoxin detects above caution?
I'd have to look at the data for that. They had some like a minor cyanobacteria bloom, but I don't recall if the cyanotoxins went above the caution level, though they still just maintain that no swimming advisory until further notice.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'll have to pull together some more of that data.
And do we have anybody on from DWR? Do they want to speak to their monitoring specifically? Okay. Marissa, do you have any update from, I don't think we have anybody from Region 4. Unless I'm missing.
Yeah. Is Emily online for Los Angeles region? All right, silence there. So the Los Angeles region has, I think I want to say 3-year study. This was the first year of targeted HAB monitoring at some priority kind of recreational lakes in their region. We can present a little bit more information perhaps at a future meeting. This monitoring project is in collaboration with Jamie Smith at SCWRP, which is the Southern California Coastal Water Research Project. I believe I got that. Their title correct. And they're doing cyanotoxin and some other environmental some other indicators. They're also measuring for some other indicators to understand the environmental context a little bit more to inform any further management actions. We can perhaps share some more information on that later. There were a few advisories that came about due to that monitoring, and they worked with the Los Angeles Regional Parks District to coordinate those postings. And regarding departmental water resources monitoring, it doesn't seem like there's a representative here today, though the monitoring that's conducted by the State Water Project and those staff, they did an incredible effort for the past many years of routinely monitoring approximately every 2 weeks several of the reservoirs along that project. And their data at their recreational sites that they monitor is presented on this web map as well. So you can follow their monitoring there.
Great, thanks. And Karen, was there anything from the southern part of Region 5 that you want to cover now, or did we get all of that when you spoke before? Sorry if I missed it.
Yeah, I did most of what we got there already.
Okay. Okay. And I know Kern County has been doing monitoring on Isabella, and I think had some low water issues just in terms of some of the sites weren't being monitored because there wasn't sufficient water depths too. So. Okay, great. Region 6.
I believe Sabrina Rice, the coordinator for the Lahontan region of the water boards, is available. Just wanted to see if she's still on the attendees list.
Yeah, I know they were doing some special studies too this year.
Sabrina, you want to try out your mic? You don't think it's working? If you just want to see if we can hear you.
Yeah, she's put a note in the chat saying she doesn't think it's working.
Okay. So the Lahontan region of the water boards has several routine monitoring projects in collaboration with different community groups that are ongoing and academics. We have a list of them in our FHAB program update. Let me just glance at that to refresh my memory. There's multiple year studies with in the Tahoe Keys Lagoon, the southern end of Lake Tahoe, along with the Tahoe Keys HOA, doing a mitigation management kind of monitoring effort to study the effectiveness of the laminar flow aeration that's been installed in several areas of that lagoon. It's quite a shallow area and is prone to having some cyanobacteria blooms, and also and originally had a quite invasive aquatic weeds as well. They also continued routine monitoring at Red Lake and Eagle Lake, two high alpine, high elevation alpine lakes. And this was a partnership with the Alpine Watershed Group, a community group that's studying these lakes further for HAB impacts and other constituents as well, understanding the water quality a little bit better. There's in process, there's also an effort to work with UC Davis to do a high elevation lakes assessment. And that's something maybe we can share some more information about in the future about what that's going to be covering. And also Sabrina Rice and her team, they did an extensive, monitoring effort of all the kind of recreation lakes nearby, swamp monitoring efforts to understand if there's any HAB impacts prior to the holiday, the key summer holidays. And they did quite a bit of targeted monitoring in many different lakes, and that data is also presented on the web map and any resulting advisories. So a lot of monitoring was happening in that region, along with their partners as well.
Great, thank you. And sorry, Sabrina, hopefully we can get everything. If you want to add anything, definitely feel free to use the chat. That'd be great, thank you. Yeah, it looks like 3 danger advisories for Crowley, Bridgeport, and Quail Lake. There was 1 warning at Silverwood and 8 cautions.
Yeah, and to add to that, Bridgeport Reservoir, that was the first time that monitoring resulted in a danger advisory for that popular reservoir and drinking water source. Also, Silverwood Lake was being monitored by the Department of Water Resources, and also the Lahontan Regional Board contributed some monitoring to respond to illness reports there. There were several human illness reports at Silverwood Lake that were, don't believe that the investigation is closed on those yet, so I don't want to speak to that yet, but we did some additional algal mat sampling there because photos showed that there was something else going on along the more shallow beaches area, and less visible cyanobacteria bloom, if any, actually in the water column in the lake itself. And there was different advisories over the summer for Silverwood Lake based off of that monitoring. And this year, Red Lake also, Red Lake typically in the peak summer does come under danger advisory, though this year the cyanotoxin levels were much lower. And so, yeah, sorry, I meant a Bridgeport Reservoir as a drinking water lake, not Crowley Lake. So yeah, we can provide a little bit further effort to summarize their data. Perhaps at the end of the year summaries, we can have a more of a concerted approach to provide some of the data.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
I think Jeff is on for Region 7.
Yep, I'm here. Oh, you ready? Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, great.
Oh, okay.
Any update?
Yeah, I was just out sampling yesterday. We have a 1-year assessment being conducted at the Salton Sea. So during the break, I put together some photos. So I'm just going to share my screen here. You cannot start while the participant is sharing. Oh, it won't let me. It says disabled.
I just stopped sharing. So if you try again,
no.
maybe that'll work.
Okay, play. Let me know when you see the thing pop up. Do you see a big clump of algal mat?
Yeah, we got the first photo.
Okay. So yeah, we've got algal mats covering near shore all over the Salton Sea. They take on different colors, different appearances, different shapes. They mostly overlie the really soft sediments, silts, clays, things like that. This is the only photo that's older. This is just to show you a cross section of the algal mat overlying the sediments. You can kind of see the stratified layers there at the top. Yesterday, I started using a polyethylene tube that I tapered. I cut it, and I was able just to drive it into the algal mats, and then just plug the end with my finger and pull out a nice plug with an algal mat layer at the top. And then I just inserted a plunger, was able to push it out. So you can kind of see the little mat at the top there. And I didn't have a razor blade, but I did have a thin ruler of metal. So I used that to sort of slice off the algal mat from the tip. And so I was able to collect a bunch of these little 1/4-inch discs, and I put those in a sample bottle. And now it's up to the lab to determine how they want to, if they homogenize a sample, or I don't know how he wants to process these. But it's just been a real challenge trying to collect these algal mats, because sometimes they're really thin, sometimes they're covered in sludge and everything else. So that's pretty much it. The assessment is, as I said, 1 year. We've already done 2 monitoring events, and we have 2 more to go, and then we'll be done. So that's about it. And then the last thing I was going to tell you, our region, I guess, has decided to cut back on our HABs monitoring. So for future monitoring, we're going to be limited to pre-holiday assessments and incident response. But I guess we won't be doing the regular Salton Sea monitoring or anything like that. So but we'll see what happens. Thanks.
Great, Jeff. I know in part of it for previous years had been some of the wildlife area where fall hunting or winter hunting was happening. Were you able to do that this year, and were you seeing anything in those areas?
No, we already finished that project. So now it's just a matter of compiling all the data, and I'll have to come out with some kind of report for all of that, but I'll definitely share that with everybody.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Region 8.
Hi, this is Katie Dupre. I'm here from Region 8. We had some holiday assessments that participated. It was mainly San Bernardino County Parks, who have 3 different parks that participated. Their levels ranged from caution to danger. We only had 1 danger, and the rest were either warning or caution. And then we also focused on our special study at Big Bear and Lake Elsinore. We've been continuing on those, and then Big Bear was at warning in August, and then caution in September. We just sampled yesterday, and I'm guessing that the levels are probably in caution at the highest, but we'll see when the results come back in the next couple of weeks. And then Lake Elsinore, we've been monitoring that as well. It was interesting because it was a caution in September, and then so for like the first week, it was at warning levels, and then we sampled it 2 weeks later, and it was technically in caution, a little high. But it did go down to caution, and it continued to go down to caution the last time we sampled as well, which was the beginning of October.
And I'll apologize. Did you guys get any of the big rain storms down south yet?
We've gotten a little bit, but not much. Not as much as you guys. We're a little jealous.
Okay, so nothing like big flushing flows or anything. Okay.
No.
Thank you. Region 9.
All right.
Carrie.
Yeah. Hi. So you'll see our main problem is our one little yellow dot there, Lake Henshaw. It's pretty much been over a year continuous bloom and at least a caution level warning. Right now it's caution because of anatoxin A detections. The microcysteines are actually at a low enough level that it wouldn't cause the trigger. But yeah, that's just been continuous. For our pre-holiday assessment, we ended up having 2 sites in Labor Day that required some follow-up, and one was the San Diego River. We had anatoxin A detected and just a little bit of microcysteines. So in that part of the river flows through a regional park where you're not really supposed to, but we do see, children go in and dogs. So we had some follow-up with the staff there. They posted signs until we did some follow-up sampling for them. And then until everything came back non-detect. So that's not posted anymore. And then the other one from our pre-holiday sampling was Lake Morena, where they already had signs posted, but that came back. We had anatoxins detected there as well. So we had some follow-up with them. And then since then, we had a fish kill complaint call come in also on the San Diego River downstream of where the park area is, that we had them put up signs. Turned out that we weren't able to find any cyanotoxins. It may have just been a low DO issue for that one, but we recently got a notification actually just a few days ago from another portion on the San Diego River that looks like there is an algae bloom. So we're actually prepping to go out to sample there and see what's going on. So we told the group, it's a nonprofit organization, to report the bloom to us on the website, and then we'll go out. So those are our main things.
Great, thanks. Did I miss anyone that had a regional update?
I had a question for Carrie. So you were talking about the fish kill. If you had seen a bloom there, just curious what you guys' protocol is for next steps, like to determine if that was something to do with cyanotoxins, the fish kill.
Yeah, we don't have an official process set up, but we were talking, I mean, it'd be great to do, we didn't see any of the fish that had, I guess, passed, must have been eaten by their turtles and other things in the area. We would love to do some follow-up tissue sampling just to confirm if that really was it. But when we went out, there wasn't even a sign of a bloom. So that's why we didn't do any follow-up with that.
And I know for the illness work group, we usually try to see what information we have available, but we do consider it reportable if it's an indirect effect of cyanobacteria, such as a dissolved oxygen that's associated with a HAB. So even if it's not a direct toxin mediated response, we still consider it reportable. And that's consistent with the CEC's threshold for that as well. Great. Well, I'm going to switch back to the agenda and we will go ahead with our next item is our statewide programs, subcommittees, and work groups. So Marissa, if you're good to switch, I'll stop sharing.
Yeah, thank you. We'll get set up here. We have some slides to share. I'll just get the screen up. And 2 monitors sometimes are just not enough, right? All right, so hello everyone. I've been already chatting, but this is Marissa Van Dyke with the State Water Board, then the Freshwater Harmful Algal Bloom Program. And both Carly Nilsson and I manage the program, and also as part of that program, we work closely with all the regional water boards across the state. And most recently, we have new hires with full-time staff dedicated to this program. And we've listed out the program coordinators as well on this slide, and we'll provide a little bit more information as we get through these slides. And I just want to allow Carly to also introduce herself, and she'll be taking us away with the first part of this presentation.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. I'm Carly Nilsson. I'm new to the FHAB program. I got hired on in May as part of the AB 834. I'm excited to be here. I'm a regional board transplant, so it's awesome to start working at a statewide level and get to work with all the regional boards. Marissa, do you want to go to the next slide and I'll kind of introduce the outline? So we're going to give you guys an update today of what's going on at state board predominantly. So we're going to talk to you, well, I'm going to give you guys a quick introduction to the FHAB program for those of you who might be new. We're going to talk about some of the monitoring. I know the regional coordinators did a great job of kind of sharing their regional efforts as well. And then we're going to end it with Marissa giving an update on some infrastructure changes, which is actually super exciting. We're going to be updating our database and reporting system. So that should be live and ready to rock and roll by next field season. So excited for that. And next slide, Marissa, thank you. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and jump right into the introduction. I'll make it brief because I think most of you are pretty familiar, but in 2016, the FHAB program kind of became formalized and the water boards became the designated lead agency for that. And the program fell within the umbrella of the Surface Water Ambient Monitoring Program. And for those of you who aren't familiar, SWAMP provides the water quality resources information to decision makers and the public about the condition of our surface waters in California. So it's kind of a perfect fit for it to fall into that. The program's initial purpose was to lead the freshwater HAB event response, assessment, and communication with a focus on recreational exposures and source water protections where recreational and drinking water uses overlap. As you can probably guess, it's because we had limited resources, so we really put the focus on human health. And then we had the approval of AB 834, which is now why I'm here. And Marissa's position is formalized in the FHAB program. So we received permanent staff, 5 of us total, which Marissa just touched on, and we also received some dedicated contract funding. as of winter 2020. And so now our program purpose can expand quite a bit with the legislative mandate. So they'll still have the focus on immediate and long-term incident response, but then also prioritizing regions, watersheds, and water bodies for assessment, monitoring remediation and risk assessment, having applied research and development for tools for decision support, and then maintaining our centralized website at the portal and continuing with our outreach and education. Next slide, Marissa. Thank you, you're on top of it. So this is just kind of a little visual to kind of help you guys. So the names that are highlighted in green, these are all of our dedicated staff that are now funded through the AB 834. So it's Marissa and I at State Water Board. Region 1 has Mike Thomas, Region 5 is Karen Atkins, and Region 6 is Sabrina Rice. Although we don't have designated positions for all the other regions, we do have staff that are allocated to the program, or at least the designated roles. And we do want to highlight them because they've been awesome in assisting with all the incident response with the little resources they have. Hopefully someday we can get them funded positions as well. But for any of you guys who are interested in getting in contact with your regional FHAB coordinators, you can find all their information on the HAB portal, which is at the link at the bottom. So feel free to reach out. Next slide. So now we kind of want to talk about, since 2016, when we started the FHAB program, the state then began tracking the incident reports. And just want to highlight that blooms have been reported in all months of the year in almost every county since then. Reporting to the water boards continues to increase, as you can see with the data summary over the last couple of years. The program is also tracking HAB-related illness reports, which involves impacts to humans, dogs, livestock, and wildlife through our interagency work group, which includes folks on this call and others, but it's OEHA, CDPH, California Department of Fish and Wildlife, and the water boards. And then those findings are reported to the CDC OHABs database. And just to highlight our incident reports, we've had over 550 this year. We're almost like, we've doubled 2019, and we might actually double 2020. And there's been 65 reports submitted for illness reports. And these are all still under investigation. So we do want to highlight that this final number will be updated at the end of the year so that we can compare to the 2019, 2020 numbers. But it's been a busy year for us, especially for us newbies who just got here this year. Next slide, please. So now I want to talk a little bit about some of the headlines this year. So kind of telling what the public has seen. Do want to kind of be sensitive to the fact that we're not calling this out to play on the grief of anyone, but rather just to kind of show what the public has been seeing and kind of a visual aid. So a lot of the holiday assessment data published to the web map on the portal was actually picked up by the public outlets, and it to help inform communities regarding recreational advisories and any cautions at some of the high recreational water bodies that people go to. In Southern California, San Bernardino County Regional Parks had several closures. And that was actually a lot of those in relation to the holiday assessment, and that was published in the media. The Central Valley Reservoir advisories also caught the attention of USA Today. The CDC published a study this year that reported on the OHABs, which is the HAB illness database since 2019, and highlighted the number of documented ER cases, which was brought up earlier. Bridgeport Reservoir, high elevation lake located in the Eastern Sierra, had its first ever danger advisory postings. And as Sarah Ryan just presented earlier, so I won't go into it, there was quite a bit of media about the Clear Lake drinking water advisory for the private systems. Next slide, Marissa. So just to remind everybody, we have a ton of resources on the FHABs portal, so please come and see what you can find. Also, that we have all of our contact information. If you have questions, comments, or additional resources you'd like us to work on, please feel free to reach out. But just want to remind everyone that it's there, and there's a ton of great information on it, so please go visit it. And with that, I'm going to segue, Marissa, into some of the monitoring efforts this year. So first, I'll talk about the 2021 holiday assessments. And I know the regional boards talked quite a bit about it, so I won't be too long about it because that was mostly their efforts. But this is year 4 of hosting the event. It's began in 2018 with the Labor Day weekend. And it's an awesome program because historically the FHAB program focused on incident response. So the holiday assessments was the first coordinated effort to collect HAB data across the state to help inform the public before recreating at our most popular water bodies during the big summer holiday weekends. And in 2021, we actually captured 3 major holiday weekends: Memorial Day, Independence Day, and Labor Day. I want to highlight that the assessments are performed by the regional board staff or in coordination with partner entities to collect and submit the data to the lab for analyses. And then this data then populates the HAB portal web map by Wednesday prior to the holiday weekend and is announced through social media and often by press release. Also every Friday, and this was captured too a little bit earlier, we have the HAB weekly update list that's distributed through the CCHAB network subscription list, which included this data. And we also now have that on our HAB incident map updated as well on a weekly basis. So if you're not on the subscription list, you can find it on our website. Next slide, please. So we had awesome participation this year. I'm just going to highlight Labor Day, but we had over 60 water bodies sampled and over 200 sites updated on the HAB report web map. In many cases, more than one location is sampled at each water body, so that's why we had more sites. And this is a great time to just highlight, all the participating agencies and all the regional board support and having this be one of the best and most successful holiday assessments to date. So great job, everybody. And next slide. This is just a really great visual to kind of show you guys what it kind of looked like, a snapshot of each one of the holidays. So we had over 525 sites assessed for all 3 assessments. And these are just the snapshots of the web maps published on the Thursday morning before each holiday weekend. And so it's a great way to understand the data that was available and how each assessment provided new additional data. And then I also just want to caveat that we realized that the map got a little busy and maybe a little hard to read and disseminate by July. And we're working on a new version of the web map so we can present the monitoring data shared by partners and the public report separately. And so if you want to see it that way, you can also see it separate or as a combined layer. And we're just kind of hoping this can help the public and other users parse out where advisories are published and where there's proactive monitoring. Marissa's going to touch on that on the last topic with the infrastructure updates, but there's a lot of really cool things we're working on. And so if you guys have some ideas, feel free to, reach out to us. We want to make this as user-friendly as possible. And with that, I'm going to pass it on to Marissa.
Thanks, Carly. And please let us know if you have any questions or comments. You can throw it in the chat window and also unmute yourself once we get there. So I'm just going to continue briefly, try to wrap this up for us all. And just want to highlight at the last quarterly meeting, we gave you all kind of an update on like the monitoring projects or special studies that were being conducted by the regional water boards across the state, and where those targeted studies are, and wanted to highlight that some of those are continuing on to next year. And we've looked at our budget for the FHAB program, and we actually have a little bit more available for some targeted studies, and we'll be calling for proposals for additional monitoring projects in January, so with the new year. So if you are interested, CCHAB members, please contact your regional FHAB staff, provide feedback, and perhaps some of your priorities can be incorporated. And just kind of highlighting here some of those, again, from the north end to the southern end of California with the Central Coast, ongoing studies in Central Valley. The Lahontan region we spoke to, there's about 4 targeted studies going on there in high elevation lakes. And the Salton Sea study will be concluding soon. And the ones happening in Santa Ana and San Diego will still be continuing on to next year. And that data, the rapid data for cyanotoxins is always published on the web map, and the other indicators that are measured for HABs, like chlorophyll, nutrients, phytoplankton community, that kind of thing, is not published on the web map, but it's collected and it'll be assessed and put out in some kind of report form later on once the projects are wrapped up. I know there's some researchers here on the line that will probably be interested in that kind of data as well. All right, and then we wanted to highlight a little bit about an ongoing partnership with the Department of Fish and Wildlife, particularly the algae bioassessment program that's been going on for, I want to say, at least 10 years, and it's incorporation now of cyanotoxin testing. But before we get into that, I just wanted to highlight, I know we've spoken to this quite a bit, thank you, Becky, that there's a difference between the planktonic blooms that occur in the water column in across the state, and then there's benthic blooms, or what we call generally toxic algal mat blooms that occur in rivers, and also some reservoirs also have these as well. And the messaging, the public health messaging is very different for toxic algal mats, and CCHAB has guidance on that. I want to highlight that in its monitoring, though, and the sampling results that you get for cyanotoxins can be quite different. So for planktonic blooms, you're measuring the amount of toxin in the volume of water that you sampled, oftentimes a water grab sample or scum sample. And then you also, and then separately in the toxic algal mat samples, when you do composite or a single grab of mats, you end up getting, there's different kind of ways that the lab can analyze these samples, and resulting in the amount of toxin per biomass, or a rough estimate, sometimes underestimating what's really there. Also, they can provide, what they could extract from the algal mats in the ambient water and provide it as the amount of toxin per volume of water, but that's a little different in its interpretation. And so with this, we want to again highlight the algae bioassessment partnership that we started this year, where the algae bioassessment program, sometimes it's hard to say that, focused on collecting samples at the reference sites this field season. This involved going up to 2 times back to each station. And these reference sites are areas that have absent or minimal human disturbance. And so these are, the reference sites that are compared to the more impacted sites, and the indices that come from the algae bioassessment program to understand the biological health of streams. So again, this is a stream sampling sites, not lakes or other ponded features. And there they collect per their bioassessment protocol, which is for a certain area of a stream, and it utilizes this interesting kind of, this is one of the tools to control for the surface area of algal mats that are sampled across a whole, many different transects across the stream. So it's a different protocol than our recreational health monitoring and our swamp field guide. I just want to highlight that. So with this, the algal mat samples, they're put into a slurry. They're split for all sorts of different kinds of analyses. And this year starting, we're able to fund a cyanotoxin analysis for 4 of the different common cyanotoxins: microcystins, anatoxin, saxitoxin, and cylindrospermopsin. And to date, they're still wrapping up through this month. 60 sites across the state have been sampled, and this was based off of a randomized study. So you can, assess that data to better understand the statewide, occurrences and trends. And when looking at this data, again, it's of course posted on the HAB portal web map. Approximately 65 of the stream sites that have been sampled had toxic algal mats present. And this is much more than we had anticipated. Again, these are relatively undisturbed sites, and some places are actually very undisturbed sites. So we'll be pulling together this information along with some taxonomy data later on, once this the data collection wraps up. What's unique about this with this analysis that comes from the lab is that because the samples are split and first made into a slurry, the lab was instructed to determine the amount of toxins per biomass, so dry weight of the algal mass. And this was done so that we could compare it to the OWIHA suggested action levels that were published in 2012. In particular, we were comparing it to the acute toxicity level for dogs, just to kind of understand a little bit more about what these levels mean. Again, there's no action levels suggested for humans, so that's why we're looking at the dog levels. And we highlighted one of the locations that had the highest level was in the South Fork Merced River. And that was for microcystin. So we do detect quite a bit of anatoxin in these samples as well. And just to pull this kind of conversation together, and please provide comments on this, we wanted to highlight again the two different algal mat lab processing methods, and in particular what those units are when the lab reports your toxin data. So if you want to have the toxin data per biomass dry weight to compare to the OWIHA levels, there's one lab approach for that. And then if you want to compare it to this directly to the CCHAB human health trigger, the human health and animal trigger levels that are posted on the HAB portal. That does not specify what units or how you should have your algal mat samples analyzed. Rather, it's the toxic algal mat signage or advisory is based off of potential toxic algae that are present or toxin detection for any of those toxins. And so you can utilize either lab processing method to understand your toxins per volume of water. And again, that underestimates what is actually present in the algal mats because it's harder to extract the toxins from that kind of complex matrix. Or you can determine the toxins by biomass. And it's important to note that even if you get the data from to understand the toxins in the volume of water, there are no human health thresholds to understand the impacts of algal mats. And this is something that the ITRC group for Benthics has been looking at. It's discussed in the draft report that Beckye pointed to earlier. And perhaps we can pull all that together later and have a more concerted discussion about this, because the FAB program does not standardize the lab analysis process. We have a standardized process of how to collect the algal mats, but then it's up to the monitoring program or monitoring entity to determine how they would like to have that data presented. Maybe this will spur some additional discussion. Particularly because there's been a lot more monitoring this past year for toxic algal mats. As you can see with these headlines, these are all headlines resulting from mats, not from planktonic blooms and lakes and ponds. Some of the first happened this year. Lake Tahoe had its first cyanotoxin detection in algal mats in the Lake Tahoe itself, not the lagoons, which is too bad to see. And also the Yosemite Valley, the National Forest, started monitoring for toxic algal mats due to the incident that occurred in the Sierra National Forest on Merced River. And they also issued some advisories at recreational sites in the Yosemite Valley. So that's the first time as well. Of note, and again, don't want to pull on the grief that this caused, but toxic algal mats were also, for the first time, suspected to be causing a mortality of a family that was found dead after recreating on a trail in the National Forest nearby Merced River that was previously posted due to high toxic algal mat data from that assessment study that we've been doing. And the illness workgroup supported the investigation with the county and the sheriff's office. And again, it was the trailhead was already previously posted for this concern. And since then, the National Forest is still closed, and also some downstream locations that are managed from the Bureau of Land Management. And as of last week, we heard from the sheriff's office that the coroner determined that the family had passed away due to heat and dehydration and not toxic algal mats. So perhaps we'll be hearing a little bit more about that from our illness work group in the future. And to wrap this up, I want to remind us all in CCHAB that CCHAB developed guidance for toxic algal mats about 2 years ago. So we've had now our full 2 years of implementation of this guidance, and it has 2 different signs, and it has an approach that's not based off of toxin concentrations in particular, like the planktonic blooms with the caution, warning, and danger. So please be familiar with this when you're monitoring just for these algal mats. And the highest level of advisory is the toxic algae alert, which has the yellow banner and often called the caution advisory as well. We welcome feedback on how this has been implemented as well the past 2 years for the guidance update subcommittee of CCHAB, which has not scheduled any meetings yet, but we plan to reconvene this year. And just going into infrastructure, this might be a particular note to some water managers here on CCHAB that as of this month, the FAB program is working to improve our satellite web tool. This is the platform that presents the already processed satellite imagery for cyanobacteria abundance. This data that's presented covers the largest lakes from the Sentinel-3 satellite. And we've had a review about this from review on this from the technical advisory committee that we held over the last couple of years, and determined, remote sensing data is quite complementary to field data, and it allows for better, spatial coverage for monitoring approaches. And in the near term, starting this month, we're going to be improving our data accessibility, particularly developing a robust API. And an API is an interface where others can interface with the satellite tool to download data sets of interest, often on a routine basis if you connect it to another API and for your own organization. And we'd like to get feedback from users of the satellite imagery data on what data sets you'd like to have available to download on a regular basis. Again, this is working towards making our data more open and accessible. And also we'll be adding the chlorophyll A data that's already available from NOAA from the satellite as well to this tool, so that you can look at the cyanobacteria index, that abundance, compared to the chlorophyll A data as well. So please reach out to us if you're interested in any of these topics that I just raised. And I know we're short on time, so it's going to run into this database modernization effort that we've been speaking to. And we had a comment sent in about how can you better look at the data on the web map and differentiate what are public reports of incidents that were investigated versus routine monitoring data that's shared to the web map, which is really wonderful that partners share that to show where also the proactive monitoring data is being collected. And so with our modernization effort, we're going to be overhauling the web map. We're going to be recreating it on a different platform that allows for different layers to be shown and also combine it. So it'll have the similar schema of, having different colored dots, but once we have a draft, we'll circulate that for review. And with this database modernization, we're going to overhaul the state agency database, right now only accessible by the water boards, but with being on a website, we're going to be able to also open this up to our other partner state agencies. And then the online report form will be made much shorter to accommodate rapid reporting to us, and also sync with the Bloom Watch app that was developed on the East Coast and used nationally. And for our partners to help support partner monitoring, that proactive monitoring, we are working with the Commons, a nonprofit, to expand the abilities of the Water Reporter app. This is something that you can log into on the web. You can make an account, and it provides infrastructure to collect to manage your field and lab data. And in the future, once this is live and our new database, there will be the ability for accounts to link to the state database, so that you no longer have to send us spreadsheets or that kind of thing, emails. Rather, your data in a Water Reporter app will go to our database and funnel into the web map. So that'll streamline some of our coordination. We want to put a plug out for this Water Reporter app. we've been working with the Commons along with several community groups and tribal governments to develop a HAB module. They approached California to develop the HAB module that'll be then implemented across the state across the country through their app. And it's right now in beta phase. It's going to be launched or go live at the end of this year. And they are looking for more partners to test this HAB module. So again, it provides infrastructure to collect your observations by phone app. Also, you can tag photos with your observations, which is nice to keep track of all the photos that we collect. I know it's always a little challenging for us. And you can set up your routine monitoring stations in there with other like field data as well, water quality data, other observations that you normally collect, and then add your HAB data to that. And it provides cloud-based data management, which is something that many people sought, and also kind of like pre-made data setup. So there already is there are already tables presented where you can put your common data that you would collect on a field data sheet and enter that in for each of your sites. And you can easily export it and also visualize it on a map within this system. So you can see it on your own map and visualize what's been going on. So again, it's like a useful tool to work within your teams and your organizations. And it helps with community groups, tribal governments with that data infrastructure component of our monitoring, because that's quite a bit of an effort as well with everything that's going on. And so please reach out to us if you are interested in beta testing. If you go to the Water Reporter app, it's going to ask you, to pay for an account. If you contact us, regardless if you connect to our database, we can connect you with a free account to test out. All right, and with that, we're just going to close. Here's the email that you can contact us with.
Great, thanks Marissa and Carly. I know we have a comment in the chat about using Water Reporter versus Bloom Watch.
Yeah, so with Bloom Watch, the Bloom Watch app is to report your observations, tag photos, right, with the phone app. And then with this Water Reporter effort, it's much more than that. And it's not to take away from the Bloom Watch app, which is really great resource. The Water Reporter effort is to provide a platform that supports your data collection in the field and then your lab analysis, a way for you to store your data and then share your water monitoring data. So it has many different functionalities in addition to what like the Cyanotoxins app can provide as well. And that app is to report where you're seeing blooms, and share that with other state agencies. And on the Water Reporter, when you tag a photo with your site, that reports within your organization internally with those that have access to your account. And then in the long term, you could then send that data to the state agency database so we can get it on your web map. So it's kind of like a different approach.
Great, thanks. Any other questions for Marissa and Carly? Great. Well, thank you guys. Oh, Sarah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I want to ask a question I always ask when it comes to the satellite imagery. If there's going to be some changes to how it's portrayed, I am just wondering about the use of data that's outside of CDN and how that can be linked into the tool and whether that is planned.
Right. So the satellite imagery tool has a tab where you can see if there's any data in CDN, which is the statewide California environmental data database, and better connections with that tool. So there might be some efforts to make better connections with that tool to present the environmental data, but with our effort to rehaul the web map, if we can sync that data, the satellite imagery data, to our new web map. That'd be a big boon. But we're not sure if we're going to be able to have that in-house capabilities, because again, web map design has to be done in-house. We can't work with contractors too well with that. You know, contracting takes quite a bit of time, and we need to make sure that's something that we can manage and update on a daily basis in-house. So there's some logistical issues that kind of impede that connection. But again, you know, this is a good plug to get data, monitoring data into Stanton or through the swamp database effort. There's staff at the water boards to support that, particularly in swamp, to get your data in. And with using the water reporter and its connection to the FAB database that's being modernized, our long-term effort is to connect it to Stanton. But once Stanton 2.0 is live, so an overhaul of Stanton database that's forthcoming, we'll make a connection. So if you join us on this database modernization effort and get your data in the water reporter app and to our database, it'll eventually get to the statewide database as well, and streamline that kind of data entry, so you're not duplicating things or triplicating things.
Yeah, because I know, Sarah, you guys have to put it into WQX, correct?
Right.
Yeah, any federally funded water collection goes into that. So that would be the tribal monitoring, and I believe like USGS and other entities, their data goes in there as well. So
yeah, it's too bad that, you know, our state database only feeds into WQX, and then there's not this other way around of that cross connection. But for assessing, those assessment units do download from the WQX for priority areas to get the assessment. But again, there's that shortcoming of presenting it on the imagery satellite tool.
Thanks. Any other quick questions? Great. Thanks, Marissa and Carly. I know we had the mitigation subcommittee. I don't know that Katie or Hugh Dalton are on, but I know there's other people that are participating in those meetings. Does anyone want to give an update? Okay, well, I know if you are signed up for that list, I know Katie does a great job of putting out the meetings summary, and they've got those meetings scheduled out with meeting invites into 2022. So we certainly welcome anyone who's interested in mitigation in California, what's going on in the ground for different projects. And I know there are other folks that are involved in participating, so really appreciate that effort and that organization by Hugh and Katie. So thanks to them. I'll just briefly provide an update for the HAB-related illness work group. Again, it's a state interagency group that deals with potentially HAB-related illnesses, both human and animal, as has come up before. One thing that's been unique for us since, I guess, June, so I talked about it briefly at the last meeting, was we do have a more organized connection with the California Poison Control System. Again, they typically get human health calls, but they may get a call for animal illness as well. And so now we have a connection where they provide both any potentially freshwater or marine harmful algal bloom related illness calls that they receive. And we get that information and then have the opportunity to follow up. It does require that they get initial permission at the time of the call. And again, these calls are for particular health concerns. So that may not be the priority for the individuals calling, but they do ask if we are allowed to follow up. And then, you know, it is challenging, and I certainly know within the realm of all the spam calls I get on my phone to try to connect back with those individuals and try to follow up and get more details. But we do try on all those cases, and I know Hal mentioned one of the ones that we did get earlier this year. And as Carly mentioned, we've certainly had a lot of different illness cases. Thankfully, that pace has started slowing down on new cases that we're receiving. And so we're getting the opportunity to try to do some of the backlog of all the documentation that we need to do for these cases. Again, we use the CDC's One Health Harmful Algal Bloom System, or OHABs. They have set forms and guidance that we utilize, which is a great resource, but it just takes a lot of time and effort to get those put together. We review those across our group, and then Tracking California CPH staff are the ones with access into the system. Those get consolidated by CDC across states. Again, we can only see our own states, but I'll put a link in there. They just fairly recently put out a report covering the or a summary of the 2019 data. And we have put up for California. I can also put the link up there, or maybe I'll actually share screen what we have for ours. I am backlogged on getting the marine 2020 data up, but we try to do it annually. It just takes us a lot of time to get all the reports in when we get a break in the new reports coming in, and then get them summarized, make sure we're consistent in all that, and get them approved and posted online. So this is our freshwater harmful algal bloom related illness tracking page. So we just got summarized some of the basic things that again go across humans and animals, how you can report a potential illness, our resources to help prevent an illness, some about our work group, and then again, this is kind of our summarized information for again, really being active in 2018. Tracking California received a CDC grant to help establish the documentation and reporting for this, and all the efforts that they take on directly. And so this is for year to date, again, by dog, livestock, wildlife, fish, human, and our total. And again, these are ones that are reported and tracked both at the state level and into CDC as being HAB related. I know we get asked, we don't necessarily classify into degree of confidence, because there are a lot of different reasons and case specific nuance to what information we have and how strong a connection that is. It's not necessarily that we have a consistent amount of data and it's just the strength of the relationship. Oftentimes it's just we don't get all the data at the same time in the same location. So we don't want to kind of confuse that issue by trying to portray to that level of detail. And then we do present the counties, again, particularly for human health cases. There is concerns with HIPAA, and so we need to make sure we're not going too specific down on where an individual case is reported. And so we do that at a county level for the annual summaries. But you could see there are certain counties where we have more, but in general, it could be any area of the state and different water body types. And then we'll need to add in, we've got the CDC report from 2016 to 2018 data, and we'll need to add in the 29, but I again put the link in the chat. But just information about what we're doing on that effort. We do still have a few of our recent cases that are still considered in progress. We're still evaluating that. And again, as I mentioned, otherwise, we're still just working through doing all the human, animal, or environmental forms that are required to document these cases. And that looks like basically what I have on that. So I'll stop sharing and see if we have any questions. Yeah, Christine?
Hey, I'm just gonna say it rather than try to type it. A couple of questions about your illness cases, whether they're human and or animal. I'm wondering if you guys are, you know, I know for the HIPAA, you're not showing anything below the county, but internally, are you guys tracking to see if you're getting like repeated water bodies that are consistently, you know, getting reports either of like human and animal? And then the other question that I was going to ask was, are you guys doing any sort of evaluation as well? When you're getting those reports, are they coming in prior to you knowing that there's a bloom event happening? Or is it happening at a water body where like there's a known either benthic or planktonic bloom that's going on? Because I'm wondering if there's also going to be some sort of evaluation in that latter case, if signs are being posted or some sort of education awareness outreach effort is going on by that water body manager or the county or whoever. Are you guys assessing how well that signage is working to help prevent and reduce the number of illness cases coming to you? So that was a lot to package.
Yeah, I'll feel free to tag me if I don't cover all that on the first go. So I would say we do track internally to our work group, all the water bodies, and we have that across all the different years of which we've done the evaluations. We are providing to the regional HAB coordinators a basic update in terms of, are we still working through a case, or have we made again, that first level of determination of HAB related or not. But again, a lot of the details of that are not provided publicly for various reasons. We certainly do see some where that is our first awareness that there might be a HAB at a water body. And so then we work with the water board staff to, if possible, do a site visit. I know certainly for some regions this summer, the wildfire, either direct health and safety concerns or road access was a limiting factor in terms of doing a follow-up site visit. So we definitely had to account for, understandably, it's not worth putting any staff at risk to go and follow up. And at that point, hopefully the limited access due to the fire was preventing further potential impact if there was a HAB, but it did potentially impact our ability to make the connection with the earlier illness report, because there was a delay in getting access back to the site. So we did have that concern and some impact on whether or not we had that. For ones where either it's a site that has routine monitoring, or in some cases we had, with the, I know it was interesting because doing all 3 holiday assessments, certainly for between Memorial Day and 4th of July, it was a very back-to-back in terms of monitoring. So we might have had an illness report that came in the midst of those 2 sampling events. So we had data to kind of bracket that way. And again, some are routine monitoring if it's like, for example, with Clear Lake or East Bay Parks or DWR, where they have extensive monitoring. So we didn't necessarily need further monitoring beyond that if the timing happened to coincide well with those events that are already occurring. But yeah, certainly we do get some illness reports where that's our first inkling that there might be a problem. And it doesn't mean that we do end up finding a HAB, but at least it's extra incentive to go and make sure we get eyes on scene, either through if the water board is able and willing, or through partner staff if they're available. As far as signage, we do follow up with the reporting party. That's one of the questions we ask is there signage posted? Did you see it? And then we follow up with the water body manager and provide feedback on whether or not that was to confirm if it's still posted, or that, the reporting party said they didn't see it. Sadly, oftentimes, I know how it is when you're looking one direction or not, or when you're coming through a site, whether or not they saw it when they were going down to the water body, or sometimes it's the after the fact. And so then they know they had exposure, or they see the sign, then that might trigger concern or additional awareness that might be the link. So that is something we consider. And so there are some water bodies that have had repeated or chronic blooms with illness reports, but we've also have we get new water bodies every year as well. So, and what did I miss? I'm sure I missed something in your question.
No, I think you covered it pretty well. I just wanted to see if, like I said, for evaluation wise, this is something that is still fairly new for the program and for California and for a lot of these water body managers. So there's not really a lot of data necessarily to analyze, but at least being able to sort of start gathering that information. And especially for water bodies that have continual frequent blooms, and then seeing whether or not, depending on what kind of signage and, outreach is going on at that water body, but then being able to see if there is like a reduction, say in the number of people that are reporting illness cases at that particular water body, to know whether or not the signs are being effective and people are really, heeding the message and being more educated, right? Being more aware. So I was just hoping that that information is sort of being collected for future evaluation. But thank you for answering.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions or comments on that? Great. Well, we are a little bit running behind schedule, but I think we're doing okay. So the next, I'm sorry, I will share the agenda. The next thing we wanted to go over was talk about the schedule for 2022 and some of the topics. And I know for January, again, we are hoping to get a kind of year-end review report out from the different regions and the statewide programs. So we usually try to make sure to allocate more time for that. We have a more extensive discussion of the Cow Watch project, and hopefully we will actually get a presentation as well from the Oregon has a similar CDC grant on private intakes into lakes there. And so we have Oregon Health Authority, Rebecca Hilwig has volunteered to present on that as well. So I think we'll have a more extended time period for that meeting. But I know I also heard that it sounds like the Region Board 6 high altitude lake assessment and the Regional Board 1 Benthic cyanobacteria assessment report might also be available. So if folks are interested and willing to present on those at that meeting, or let us know if a future meeting would work better for those. And I know we plan to continue with a quarterly meeting, so we'll have the January, spring, summer, and fall. But we don't have any of them on the calendar yet, except the January 19th meeting. And I put the date in the chat as well. Sarah or Dave, do you want to bring up any topics you were hoping we would cover?
Actually, Becky, one other thing I wanted to point out about the January meeting is because of the longer presentations, more extensive presentations for the regions and the subcommittees, that it will be a longer meeting, most likely from like 9 to 2 or something, I believe we were talking about as in previous times. So just keep an eye out for that.
And yeah, I'm good, Becky. I think we should get input. I hope we get input on what other kinds of talks, or maybe even specific talks would be appropriate and people would want to hear, and open to that.
Yeah, and I think there was possibility that we would hear more on the Discovery Bay project that Janice and Ellen Priest and others are working on potentially at that point too. So that would be good to follow up on.
Been working on Discovery Bay myself, and I'm happy to present on that as well.
Oh, great. Sorry, Dave. Thank you.
No problem.
Anyone else want to bring up particular topics or are willing to present on things that they're directly involved with? Okay. Well, we will plan on, as co-chairs, getting the the spring and summer and other meetings on the calendar, and work with our water board support staff, which right now thankfully Katie is helping with, to get those added to our CCHAB page. Again, we'll get this meeting recording posted to the YouTube that I put in there. So that'll be helpful. And certainly you can reach out to all three of us if you have any questions or any ideas for future meetings or any comments on this meeting. So we really appreciate the feedback. And I just wanted to appreciate everyone's time. And I guess any last comments, questions, suggestions, or we will get done a little early.
I just want to say I appreciated the FHAB report out, Marissa and Carly. That was just really thorough and interesting. And thanks for bringing us up to speed about all the different activities that are going on with your program. So thanks. It's very impressive. And thanks for the information.
Great. Okay, with that, appreciate everyone's time, and we will get this recording shared and posted, and look forward to hearing from all of you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.